On this episode of the Khan App Guru podcast, we will discuss how to protect your digital life data. Welcome everyone to the second episode of the Khan App Guru podcast. I'm your host, Rob McKinney, the Construction App Guru. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter under my handle @KhanAppGuru. This week's show, I will focus on my recent blog post about digital documentation protection plans, or more to the point, how do you protect your digital life data? My blog post this week on Monday was about the topic of digital documentation protection plans. What does that really mean? Part of the blog post that I wrote was talking about the modern age of cloud. We're living in this mythical cloud that some people understand, some people don't understand. But the magic of the cloud is that it allows us to store and share things such as our photos, our music, and more importantly, our construction documents. There's kind of one interesting item that I've noted about this cloud is that it creates a, quote, digital footprint of your life. So there's things that we leave throughout the cloud that are tied back to us. They're kind of, if you want to think about it, breadcrumbs along the internet highway. But have you ever stopped to think about what will happen in the event you are not around to access your data in the cloud? What if you have an untimely demise? What if you are incapacitated? There's several bad scenarios I could come up with, but the idea being if your family members or your professional team members need access to files, information, things of that nature in the cloud, how would they get to it? Last year I was driving around Atlanta going to some meetings and I heard an interesting radio program talking about this concept, this problem that's going on with more and more things moving away from paper to the digital space. And the idea they were floating at the time was how to create a digital documentation protection plan. Well, you're asking, well, what is that? Rob, what are you talking about? Well, think about the concept this way. Everything that you have stored in the cloud is secured. It's in a certain place. You have passwords. It's locked away. It's only for you to access. But what if something does go wrong? I hope it never does, but it's something you have to think about. How would your family or your professional teammates access that data? Do they know your passwords? Do they know where all of your account information is? You know, we're talking about several different types of things here. In the first sense, let's think about things from your personal life. What about your iTunes library? I know my iTunes library is rather mature. The last time I measured it, it was around 30 gigabytes between movies, TV shows, music, themes, lots of different things. Well, I've paid money for that. I own the rights to it, but what if something were to happen to me? How could my wife or my daughter access that in the future? What about all the photos I back up in iCloud? What about my Pandora license? You know, personal consumption type things in the data sense in the cloud is one level. Think about it on a business level of all the accounts you've created to do your job. What if your company has provided you with an iPad and you're using iCloud? Does the company have that password to unlock your device if they need to? Your smartphone, your tablet, your email address, any cloud accounts you use to store documents. Think about anything that you have put in the cloud that your company may need access to later. How would they get to this? So there's this big problem kind of developing with your digital life. What would happen to it in the event you cannot access it? What happens once you're gone? So there's a few things you kind of want to think about in how to find and develop a way to protect this data. I came up with three kind of key drivers when you're looking for a solution. And what I'm talking about specifically now as a solution would be a password app that could go on your smartphone, your tablet, your desktop. Ideally, it would sync across all three, where anytime, any place you can get to this password vault, this locker of content, so to speak. So the first thing you want to talk about and look at would be security. The general minimum encryption levels most people start talking about would be 256-bit encryption. What does that mean to the common man? It's basically the same level your bank uses. So if you use online banking, That's the type level security we want to make sure you have in place for a password protection app or software. Next one to think about is offline access. Does it have to always be in the cloud? Can it sync these passwords, all this data, to your local mobile device, your smartphone, for example, your tablet, or even your computer? And a new one that really adds a lot more security levels is a fingerprint scanner. The new iPhones, most of the Samsung higher end phones have this feature, your iPads. So instead of just having to put in a password to authenticate that it's you trying to access this data, you put your fingerprint. And so it scans your thumb, your forefinger, fill in the blank. It's a double layer of protection to make sure it's only you trying to access these passwords. Now, obviously, if you're not around, it can't get in there. That's why you have to have a backup password for a family member or a team member to access your account. But those are things to think about. How secure is the platform? Is it available offline? And does it have a fingerprint scanner option just to make it a little bit more secure? 4 of the solutions that I've played with recently that I'm still doing some deep dives on, maybe these options will help you out. There's 4 that I'm kind of looking at very strongly currently. Number 1, 1Password. Number 2, Dashlane. Number 3, LastPass. And 4, LifeLock. And LifeLock works a little bit differently because it has some very high level credit monitoring features we'll talk about. But let me just start off first. 1Password. That's an option I've looked at for about a year. It's a unique option where you have a smartphone, a tablet app, desktop sync, internet-based. Now, before I get too deep, let me also mention all of these options offer you a free version. The kicker, though, if you want the full features, you want it to sync across devices, you obviously have to go for a paid version. Paid software is going to be more powerful, unlock a lot more things, but free, you can test it out and see how you like it. So I digress. Option 1, 1Password. Been trying this out for quite a while. It seems to work pretty good for me. One unique thing about it is it does offer team members or your family, if need be, access to the account. So you can set up a portal. You can basically enable this account to grant others access that you deem appropriate for that. It also has a nice random password generator built in where if you want to create new passwords, it'll do it for you. The other one I've been looking at, Dashlane, has a built-in random generator. Great option. This one also works on smartphones and tablets, Android and iOS. A new one that I've recently started looking at is the third option, LastPass. This has smartphone and tablet versions. And by the way, I think I forgot, all of these so far work on internet, Apple, iOS, and Android. Number 3, so LastPass, it does offer the family option and friend access for emergencies if need be. It does have a password generator built in, and one unique thing with LastPass is it will let you set passwords as pronounceable so you can speak them in there. Some of us have some phonetic issues when we're speaking, so that's kind of a cool option you might want to look at. The last one I've been playing with is LifeLock. Last year I did have a bad experience with a large cell phone service provider. I won't mention by name, but they were hacked. My last 4 of my Social Security was compromised and my last name, and I had a very bad experience. They offered me 2 years of a credit monitoring service to try and clean things up, and I wasn't quite satisfied with that. I'd heard about LifeLock for quite a while, so I went ahead and pulled the trigger and started a monthly subscription for LifeLock for a small monthly rate below $10. They also come with an app that'll store your passwords, and it works on mobile devices. It's internet, it's iOS, it's Android. So it's tied into my credit monitoring, but it also has my passwords. So it's been pretty interesting trial between the 4 of these. Stay tuned for a blog post and some podcast material coming out later about individual information on those solutions. To wrap it up, what am I talking about at the end of the day? We're trying to move away from the old notebook you kept in your drawer, hopefully you kept in your drawer with all of your passwords written down where you could access them when you need to. If you want to keep notes on your mobile device with that information, at least move it from paper to digital, please make sure it is a secured note and somebody else couldn't get access to it quickly. But more to the point, if you look at one of these 4 apps that I brought up or search and find one yourself, the goal is to find a solution that will help you, 1, catalog all of your websites and passwords, 2, secure it and put it behind firewall so only you or people you deem relevant can have access to it, such as family and friends, 3, make sure it's offline, you can access it without an internet signal, and then the 4th one, look for that fingerprint scanner option. I think it'll help you out a lot. It's pretty interesting how it works. Well, thank you again for listening in on the podcast this week. If you want to follow more of my blog post, the written content, you can always check that out at conappguru.com. In the next few weeks, I am going to be working on some review material for hardware items such as the Surface Pro 4, the iPad Pro, and more new apps. And as always, please follow me on any social media that you'd like to continue seeing my messages. Facebook and Twitter, you can find me at conappguru. And stay tuned for more to come in 2016. Thanks for listening to the At Conapp Guru podcast. Stay tuned for more in 2016.